I'm going to be,
There we go.
okay, I'm talking about William Kendridge today. And he does art in a really different way than the other artists that I've shown so far. Are you guys hearing me all right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good. I'm not wearing my headset today because I'm the only one here, so I can make as much noise as I want. And you can not hear other stuff. So okay, so let me go share. Oh, I don't think I'm at the beginning. Okay, so this is one of William Kendridge's work from I haven't seen this piece. It's a still from More Sweetly Play the Dance. It's an 8-screen video installation. And let's get into his history a little bit. He was born in 1955 in Johannesburg to a Jewish family, and his parents were advocates who represented people marginalized by the apartheid system that was there when he was, well, he's lived in Johannesburg his whole life. He's never moved from there. So he's experienced a lot of the history of that area. He earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in Politics and African Studies at the University of Witwatersrand, and then a diploma in Fine Arts from Johannesburg Art Institute. And in the early 1980s, he studied mime and theater in Paris, and he thought he was going to become an actor, but later discovered that he was so bad as an actor that he was reduced to an artist, and he made peace with it. Thank goodness for us. This is one of his drawings. He does a lot of self-portrait work. He works with charcoal. He's best known for his prints, drawings, and animated films. And he does his animation by filming a drawing and making erasures and changes, and then filming it again. And he continues this process. So it's like kind of like stop animation, except for that a lot of stop animations done more with clay. This is him working on a drawing over and over and changing it. And so every drawing is 1/4 of a second up to 2 seconds of screen time. So it's altered and filmed this way all the way until the end of a scene. But he does add in some other drawings too. So I'll show you some of those. And these palimpsest-like drawings are later displayed along with the film as finished pieces of art. So I had to look up that word. I didn't know what palimpsest meant. And it is the way they used to make books, because it was so expensive to make books that they would make the pages out of some kind of durable material like animal skin or other kinds of materials that they could write on, and then when they were done with the book, they could erase the pages and write a different story or different words on the page. So I thought that was really interesting. So that technique is you can see that in his animations. He also creates artwork as part of theater productions and plays and operas, and he served as art director for many productions, and he collaborates with other artists, including puppeteers and musicians and people that write musical scores, and he makes these big multimedia combinations. So his animations deal with political and social themes from a personal and at times autobiographical point of view. As I mentioned, he includes the self-portrait in many of his works. And the political content and unique techniques of his work have made him one of South Africa's top artists. Excuse me. He works what is in essence a very restrictive media using only charcoal and a touch of blue or red pastel, but he creates these animations of astounding depth. While he does not portray it as a militant or oppressive place that it was for Black people, though he does on occasion, but he also does not emphasize the picturesque state of living that white people endured during apartheid. And he presents instead a city in which the duality of man is exposed. This is one of his well-known pieces, and it's called Caspier's Full of Love, and it's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And it's a box with these heads in it, and though most of us may not know what that is, the South Africans know a Caspier is a vehicle used to put down riots. It was kind of like a crowd-controlled tank. So the title is written along the print is suggestive of narrative and is oxymoronic. And it says the purpose of a machine such as this to instill quote unquote peace by force, but Kendridge noted that it was also used as a tool to keep lower class natives from taking colonial power and money. So sometimes his pieces are, they have deeper meaning than what you may first see in his work. Whoopsie. Okay, so he says my drawings don't start with a beauty mark. Thinking about the activity of printmaking as being about getting the hand to lead the brain rather than letting the brain lead the hand. It has to be a mark of something out there in the world. It doesn't have to be an accurate drawing, but it has to stand for an observation, not something that's abstract like an emotion. Let's see, in the same way that there is a human act of dismembering the past, there's a natural process in the terrain through erosion, growth, dilapidation that also seeks to block out events. In South Africa, this process has other dimensions. The very term, quote, new South Africa, unquote, has within it the idea of a painting over the old, a natural process of dismembering, the naturalization of things new. The traces of what has been erased are still visible to the viewer as his films unfold. A sense of fading memory or the passing of time and the traces it leaves behind are portrayed. Kendridge's technique grapples with what is not said, what remains suppressed or forgotten, but can easily be felt. So that's a lot. He deals with a lot in his work. And 2016 was the anniversary of Rome's legendary founding in 753 BC, and he did a big mural called Triumphs and Laments along the river Tiber, I think it's pronounced, and it's 550 meters long. And it's a procession of more than 80 figures from Roman mythology to the present. And he also collaborated with a composer to do a series of performances and live shadow play with more than 40 musicians. So he has quite large productions. So I'm going to show a video. Oh, I never did this full screen, did I? Oh. Okay, I see this. I'm sorry, I didn't have it do it full screen. All right, so let me share the screen. Back this up.
I describe myself as an artist living in Johannesburg who makes drawings, and sometimes the drawings are filmed and become animated films. Sometimes there are performers in front of the animated films and they become theatre or opera. So it becomes a drawing in 4 dimensions, in space and extending over time. The studio here is both a vital physical and psychic space. In a way, you can think of it as a kind of expansion of one's head, where instead of a synapse or a thought traveling 3 centimeters from one part of the brain to another, it's the 8 meters walk across the studio from one drawing to another image, and filling the studio with all the stages of a project as it happens. The ink, the charcoal, the pages, the previous drawings physically there is a vital part. So this is the studio, the garden studio. There's a larger studio in town where the workshops happen, where sculpture's made. But this is where animation, the drawing, the editing happens. I guess it all starts from charcoal drawings. You can change charcoal as quickly as you can change your mind. One can take a drawing and with one brush, it just disappears. So there's a flexibility in it, as well as a kind of granularity that I really like. You know, the brushes, when you get them, keep a good point, so you can work quite accurately. And as they get more used, they become more recalcitrant and don't keep their shape. So there's a kind of different ways of drawing with either the good or the bad brush. Like the charcoal, it's very adjustable. It's adjustable not by rubbing it out, but by sticking other sheets over. And it's kind of got a speed that one can. I had 2 lives as an artist. One after university, when I made etchings and taught at an art school and had an exhibition. And then I decided I didn't have the right to be an artist. I had nothing to say. Tried to become an actor, failed at that. Tried to become a filmmaker, failed at that. And discovered, almost in spite of myself, that I was back in the studio making drawings. And that's when, I suppose, a year or so after that, I could finally write on a visa application form, occupation artist. There has to be an initial impulse, which might be an image, it might be a phrase, and it has to be enough to get the first drawing done. And then the hope is that in the physical activity of making the drawings, new ideas emerge and possibilities are seen, which then start to direct it. And then after a while you start saying, well, what does it start to add up to? What are the kind of concerns that are coming out in the work? And that becomes the shape. The idea of being an artist is that all the different mediums are open to you in which to explore the world, which is to say, to explore your relationship to the world as an artist. I don't negate my position as an artist. It's both an inside and outside position. It's both an insider as a child of privilege, of being, white, middle-class South African who's had the first 40 years of my life under apartheid and the last 20 years in the period since first democratic elections. So aware of those contradictions. That's the position from which the art has always been made, where sort of a self-awareness is deeply built into the process. I think there's an important polemical and political role in art, in defending the uncertain, in having critique of all forms of certainty, whether it's authoritarian politics or certainty of knowledge, of making ambiguity and contradiction its central lifeblood, showing that these are not just mistakes at the edge of understanding, but the way in which understanding is constructed, of making us aware of constructing meaning rather than receiving information. These are all things that are natural to art, and they all are kind of models of how understanding in the world could be. The studio in town is a larger machine. It's where we make the sculptures, where we film workshops, where we do rehearsals. So it has a different kind of functioning. So a lot of things are filmed there and then brought back here, and we look at them on a much smaller scale in the model. It's not that I've chosen to base myself. I've chosen to never leave where I am, where I have been based and where I come from. You know, there were many times when it seemed both possible, sometimes when it seemed a good idea to not be in this madness of the South African political maelstrom. But fundamentally, I've understood that the work and the connection to the people here and to the politics and to the world is fundamental to the work. Even if the work isn't about that, even if it's painting a landscape or drawing a landscape or an ink drawing of a portrait, it's very inflected by what it is to be here, by the city that is an animation in itself. And that's always seemed very valuable to me, and that's why I've stayed here all these years.
Okay, let me make sure I stopped that. Oops. Okay. Okay, so that's gives you a little taste of him. He's a very well-spoken artist that has a lot of ideas and a lot of ways of expressing them. I want to show you some of his animation. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions at this point? Okay. It's a little hard because you haven't seen his work too much yet. Okay, this is some work. He did a presentation. I think he was supposed to be live, but because of COVID, he wasn't able to go there. And so there's some subtitles in, I think it's in Greek and another language, but let's take a look at this.
Boy.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so you got to see the one of his animations. Looks like he mostly did that one with ink. And there was some charcoal, but a lot of ink in that particular one. So you can imagine it took him quite a long time to do that. If every frame was like, what was it, a fraction of a second or up to 2 seconds per frame, and that was a long animation too, and a lot of profound thoughts. I kept wanting to photograph certain pages of that, so it was very beautiful, I thought. So let me show you one of another video that's shows more of his theater production. Oh, actually, they did have some of that. Let me think about this. I think they did have a little bit of that in that video, and I could just fast forward it. Let me fast forward it. Okay, hold on.
Is the very fact of the book. We used it in many different ways, but largely thinking about texts, fragments of texts, which could be one's fate or could not be one's fate. The way these projects work in the studio is that there's obviously some period of drawing and some idea of a theme, but the heart of it always happens in our first workshops, in which actors, singers, musicians are brought together, and with some idea of a starting point, but no idea of an end point. We improvise, we test different pieces of music, we see what sort of movements and actions suggest different things, and hope in this process to discover the heart of what we do. Here I will now show you some of the workshops we did in Johannesburg in the early stages of making Waiting for the Sibyl. It took place in my studio, and with, as you can see, different musicians, singers. We'd initially thought that all the music would simply be recorded, but as you'll see when we started working with these particular singers, it was clear it would be crazy to take away their presence, and the way their presence also transforms the music they're making, and to work just with a recording. So we informed Rome that I know they were expecting simply recorded music, but to do the project that was not possible.
Kamalako, Ongala Saba.
Okay, that was just practice. We can imagine what the real thing turned out to be. It's just so exciting. I find his work very, very exciting, and very inspiring for me. Um, so, he was at the Museum of Modern Art. I don't know, in San Francisco. I don't know if anyone saw him when he was there. He had his own gallery space, and he had all this. He makes these kind of machines. He had these um like old fashioned wooden film projectors, and did anyone see it? Oh, okay, good. I'm glad some of you saw it. I was actually trying to find a video about it, and I just found a video from the SF MoMA right before I came on. I didn't get to watch it, so I don't know. We could try to see if it's about that. I was just looking for it. Wasn't that one? Oh, here. Okay, we could try to take a look at it. I actually don't know if it was about the San Francisco show or not. Oh, good. It looks like it is.
There's a sense of animation as a field of transformation, of depicting transformation. That's always been at the heart of it, that continues today. Charcoal is a very fortuitous material to be working with for animation, because its tonal range kind of is very good for photographic film, but also because of the speed of its transformability. It's very easy to erase. So you can kind of change it as quickly as you can think. And I suppose it became a way of thinking rather than a physical medium for me. Films are made without a script or a storyboard. So there are one or two key images that I know at the beginning of the film, and I'd start with drawing those. And literally that is, it's on day one when I say I want to make a film, usually by the end of the first day or the end of the second day, there's film that's gone through the camera. But a drawing is done on a sheet of paper that's on the wall of the studio, and halfway across the studio is the camera, say 4 paces away. And I'll draw the first image of the sea and shoot 2 frames with the camera, then walk back across the studio to the drawing, and on the same sheet of paper on the drawing, not make a whole new drawing, but just erase, for example, the top crest of the wave and change the shape of the white line minutely, maybe add some more charcoal below. Walk back to the camera and shoot 2 more frames, and then walk back to the drawing and maybe make that white line fatter so that in fact the foam is getting thicker on the top of the crest of the wave. Maybe it's getting darker underneath, add more charcoal there. Walk back to the camera and shoot 2 more frames. I've now shot 6 frames. That sequence would continue with the walk between the camera and the drawing. If it's 4 seconds long, that's 100 frames, 50 walks. If it's 20 seconds long, it's so much longer. So there are sometimes many hundreds of alterations on one sheet of paper. And the sheet of paper that is left is the last frame, not of the film, but of that sequence in the film, of that shot. I'm not seeing what's been shot. I have to take it on trust what is there. All that you see at each moment is the present. In other words, the state of the drawing at that moment. And it's very much in the belief that in that physical walk between the drawing and the camera, in that physical process, it's not a mental process, it's a physical process, new images and ideas suggest themselves to go before that shot, after that shot, what that shot can develop into.
Okay, I was hoping it was going to be more about the actual exhibit that was there, but but that was interesting to hear about how he does his animation. Let's see. I just was wondering if Lena or Karen, do you have any memories or thoughts about the SF MoMA exhibit? Yeah, it was a while back, right? I think 2000 was that 2000, early 2000. So it was a while back. I just remember it being very dark and a lot of wood and projection. It was the first time I think I had seen his work live. So um he has a really beautiful exhibit that I think it was in 2016, the Roman exhibit I talked about, and I have some footage of that. And one of the people in my last class, actually, she was in Rome on a bus, and she said, "Oh, that's what they were pointing at." She was on this bus tour, and she said that the tour guide pointed out, "Oh, there's a mural there on the wall," and she realized after my lecture that's what it was, that they didn't give her any more information than that. So that was interesting. So let me show you a bit about that. Set that up. And I want to, oh, I guess I have to go through this ad.
Bronco needed to rent a crane ASAP.
Cranes.
So he used his American Express business card, which allows him to pay off his balance over time to get exactly what he needed. Let the building commence. Get the card built for business by American Express.
Brilliant ideas, powered by Hyundai Motor.
Oh, but I want to take you. Is it here? Oops. Okay.
Scientific experiment. We just felt we have to bring this to London.
The Whitechapel Gallery is just the first stop on a grand European tour for the Refusal of Time and other key works. But his biggest work to date is on a literally epic scale, found in the ancient city of Rome.
I was in Rome about 15 years ago and was taken by an American artist, Kristen Jones, at the back of her scooter, to the edge of the Tiber and said, "Look at this straight expanse of wall, the size of the Circo Maximus." And she kept on saying, "Wouldn't this be a great place to do a projection, to do a drawing on?"
I was drawing these she-wolves. I had 300 she-wolves on my computer. After seeing this magical animation that he did, I had this fantasy that he had to do the animation. That William drew the she-wolf, and it awoken the city of Rome, it awoken all of us to this magical site and to the fact that there is no reason why we can't inspire ourselves from Rome's history and build a major contemporary art open-air gallery that's already built.
For this frieze, stretching 500 meters across the marble wall of the River Tiber, William has used a series of images taken from historical Rome, in addition to newer imagery of migrants arriving in Italy today.
I'm making a drawing simply by erasure, which is something I've done with charcoal but never thought of doing with pollution and bacterial growth on the wall. To erase different sections of the dirt and have a whole series of other possible histories. So the fact that it's an ephemeral project, after 4 years it will fade away, or 2 or 3 years it'll start fading away.
So that reminded me how many artists I've shown you lately about that have done ephemeral work that, you know, isn't going to last forever and has to be recorded or photographed, and you just have to be there to really experience it. So I don't know, this seems to be a theme in the artists I've been showing you lately. I think next quarter I'll be showing you some more traditional artists in the mix.
In 4 years there'll be a ghost of it. Maybe that will be when it's at its most interesting, when it's almost there but not present.
The gradually disappearing images in Triumphs and Laments wasn't only conceived as a frieze. A spectacular show was also in the making, to be performed to the people of Rome.
The notion of being in exile started to really talk to me as a composer, and I ended up choosing a 17th century piece of music by Italian Jewish composer Salomone Rossi. It was a psalm which deals with the rivers of Babylon. That idea became almost the real theme that glued everything together.
We worked with two bands 500 meters apart, one of Triumphs, one of Laments, and the two bands coming together with different stops and contests between them, but showing this historical clash. I'm a little bit astonished that the project actually happened. There were so many things we saw in the 3 days we had to rehearse of how you could work with large-scale shadows, that in a way I'm now really keen to do more work that uses that scale and those techniques, but which is waiting to be developed further in other projects.
Definitely one of the highlights in my working relationship with William.
He has grown into somebody who tackles the most alarmingly massive projects, which looks daunting to anybody else, and take it all in his stride.
He's one of the very rare artists that is able to bridge the gap between visual art, performance, theater, film, all in one work. And for me, he's extremely inspiring.
I asked him once, what are the upsides of fame? And he quoted the Emily Dickinson poem. Fame has a sting, but it also has a wing. He certainly used the updraft in such a productive way.
With friends, recently we were saying, if you didn't have to work, what would you do? And many people said, oh, if they didn't have to do their job, they'd retire here, they'd live in this place and doing that. And I said, well, if I didn't have to work, I could spend so much time in the studio. And yeah, I can't imagine not doing this.
Okay, I'm going to skip through here because I want to show you one more thing about how he did animation with, oh, actually, is this one? Oh, here. Okay, I want to show you this piece, and then I'm going to show you how he works with landscape. Is this it?
Anybody else's drawings, they didn't look like anybody else's films.
Oh, sorry about that.
I'm Agent Mobius, by the way.
My favorite film is Monument. It's only 3 minutes, but it's just incredible.
In Monuments, the main character, industrialist Soho Eckstein, builds a monument which people think will be of himself. To everyone's surprise, when it's unveiled, it's actually a monument of a male worker with the tools of his labor on his back.
It's a black man. It's a slave figure. And when the film ends, he opens his eyes and he blinks. It's very sentimental, but it's very gripping. And for me, that's the most poignant film because it's the most, if you like, the best monument that I have against apartheid. I always cry when I watch it.
As his animations...
Okay. I'm not taking you through this whole thing because it's just too long, but it's one more section. And
World halfway, and can also affect it and change it.
A constant image in William's work is the mining landscape around Johannesburg, a city built on gold mines. A landscape that symbolizes a torn and divided nation.
A landscape essentially was green, leafy, with water in it, with mountains usually in the background if it was a South African landscape. And the landscape around Johannesburg was none of those things. So when I started drawing, it was trying to understand, could one make an anti-picturesque landscape that was the opposite of these expectations of what a landscape should be? And then I found the extreme pleasure of actually drawing those landscapes. The fact that they were halfway drawings themselves, which was full of graphic lines, of straight edges, of abandoned civil engineering that made the landscape what it was. And there became both a pleasure in the activity and following that a pleasure in the landscape. So there is no landscape so blasted and bleak around Johannesburg that doesn't give me great pleasure to look at.
Johannesburg's a very ugly city. It doesn't have any defining natural feature. It wasn't built along a river or arm of a mountain. You just went, drilled down and extracted gold. It's industrial, but it has this strange rusticity. And if you look at William's landscape drawings from that time, he evokes that strange, damaged, yet somehow rural landscape. I love those.
The changing features of the Johannesburg landscape became a defining characteristic of the art itself. As he worked and reworked his drawings, William developed a new technique to create what he's best known for today, his charcoal animated films.
Okay. All right. So I think that's all the video I'm going to show today. There's so many videos about him, but I selected those. So any feedback or thoughts about him and his work, or other things that a few of you know him, so maybe you have some other things you'd like to share. I guess Lena and Karen.
Early on, he in the first interview thing, he said that he didn't say he's neutral, but he said he didn't aim to portray either the Black situation or nor apartheid, but his works all seem to be geared to making a statement anti-apartheid, the ones we've seen.
Yes, I know. So I don't know if when he said that it was earlier or what, but he does definitely, a lot of his work is about apartheid. Maybe
powerful.
Maybe it not as in your face as it could be, but definitely things that make you think about what was happening at that time. So, and even still, there's still things that he's expressing in his current work too. So, Karen, do you want to say something?
Well, what I remember most over the 5 or 10 years since I've known of his work is that dogged walk from charcoal drawing back to camera, back to charcoal drawing. I mean, he just does he's done that thousands of times, basically. And the patience that goes into that. And yet his works sort of flicker by, but are very powerful. I really do like them. For a while though, I think it was 2015, we were traveling a lot. We went to see a gallery in DC and it highlighted his work. Then we went to London and saw that Whitechapel exhibit. And then we went somewhere else. And again, it was almost as if we were overwhelmed with this person's work. And at that point, I didn't know a lot about his background. And I thought, oh, he's just overemphasized right now. but it was in 3 or 4 major cities that we went to, and it was always William Kentridge. But that's kind of fascinating to me.
That is interesting. It's sort of like the Sayre, Betty Saar and Allison. They're like everywhere right now. And yeah, I don't know how everybody decides they want to show someone at the same time, if they even know what each other's doing. But it does seem that there is often, I mean, even Frida Kahlo, for a while there was everything Frida Kahlo, right? And now, so it's sort of interesting how it goes in waves like that. Yeah. Oh, AJ, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just commenting. I'm amazed at his work. First time I've seen it, and his patience when he draws it and he walks back and forth. And then I was thinking, gee, this is not very efficient. I mean, what's he doing? Want to hire an assistant? Does he need to exercise? But I think found out he gets inspiration. That's how he does it when he's walking and he draws the next one. If he just sits there, he probably won't get the same thing. So maybe that's the key.
Yeah. Well, he did say in one of the videos that the studio was like a walking, walking in his brain, like it was the motion of walking was moving around, and maybe that's brief little stroll inspired him or gave him a thought. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, when you look at the animation, it looks so free and so just so it's just looks so I don't know, has a freeing sort of I don't know what it just looks so light. And I mean, not that the topic's usually light, but just that the motion of everything changing looks so easy, and that when you see what he actually goes into it, it's quite tedious. So I don't know how he marries those two things together. So, well, I'm just about at the end. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? So I'm going to be, I don't know if you heard this or not, but I'm going to take an extra week off. So I'm going to start a little bit later in fall. Today's my last summer session. So I'm going to start a week later and then just add another class at the end. So I think, what did I say?
September 29th.
Yes, I'll start September 29th.
Yeah.
And then I'll go through December, whatever it was, an extra week at the end of December. So anyway, I just want to let you know I'm going to take a little bit of time off.
Yeah, do we have to sign up, or is it automatic?
No, it's already taken care of.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're all good.
Okay, good. All right, cool. Well, I look forward to seeing everybody in about at the end of September. So thanks so much.
Thank you,
I'll see
Judy.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Judy.
Enjoy
We'll
your
see you in the fall.
Bye-bye.